Before we start the presentation, I'd like to highlight some of the more significant accomplishments this past 12 months. Colab continues to do significant work on various county projects, and we thank John Gay for being here and his continued support and his continuing answering my text messages at 4 o'clock in the morning. Illegal Dumping Task Force continues its activity, and the new app created by Public Works is a great tool. If you're not using it and you have a pothole in your area, see me afterwards. It's a great reporting tool. In Brawley, the 8th Street refurbishment is now complete to include the small portion that is under the jurisdiction of the county, but soon to be under the city. Roseanne? Is that in work? In the work. On the IID side, we welcome our new, very smart energy manager, Marilyn. We've got a number of folks here who want to talk about that later. We'll save it for later. IID has committed funds to underground the Best Canal in Brawley, which resolves a long-standing safety concern for the 12-year housing. In place, a new developer who is here with us today was able to work with the city of Brawley to complete the much-needed housing and, more importantly, finish that housing development. We have worked with the city of Imperial and the developers on a significant impact fee increase. Stay tuned for the outcome of that. The solvency and its importance to our water rights continues to be a significant issue to all of us, and we Colab have been directly involved. Colab, as well as veg growers, supported the county's emergency declaration for both the Salton Sea and the New River. We've been fairly active with candidates. Candidates training in 2019 in conjunction with the County of Imperial had over 20 attendees. We launched a new Robert's Rules of Order seminar, and by the way, in case you didn't know, it's an election year. With the primary on March 3rd. That is 10 days away. Bruce, 10 days of counting?
Hell, I don't know. I just want it over.
We've hosted 2 of our 3 candidate forums already, with the final one scheduled in Biloxi on February 25th. It's been another good year. Way too much going on, and seemingly more than ever than in prior years. Colab's time of reflection is over. Let's get this started here. I've already given you the ground rules, and I'm not going to repeat them. So with that, Mr. Plantarty.
Can we get somebody working on a spare battery just in case? All right, good morning, everybody. My notes say that I'm supposed to introduce Supervisor Ryan Kelly to do this presentation, but I don't think he was prepared, and he's giving me the evil eye over there, so I don't think that's what he planned on doing. I'd like to, before I get started, mention a couple county staff that are also here today to support our presentation and our effort. Kay did mention Tony and Adam. Jeff Lamore is here also with, he's a Deputy Director for Environmental Health. Carlos Ortiz, our Ag Commissioner. John Gay, of course. Rebecca Terrazas is here. She is our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. And I think I saw Jim Minnick running around. Okay, did I miss any of you guys? All right, so we got some of the team here to help me answer some of the questions that you may have. So let me start by saying, once again, thank you for allowing me to provide you with an update. State of the County address earlier this month, I've selected this year's theme to be honoring heritage while building our future. I believe that it is extremely important to set the tone and create a vision for our year ahead. I believe that our heritage helped shape us into who this county is today, but it has also let us carry forward the traditions that our predecessors established before us. Knowing that many struggles took place to create this beautiful place in our colorful farmland of Ross, out of something that was once only a barren desert, the sacrifice that our county's forefathers made should never be forgotten, but more important, it should be honored. Now, we need to focus on the vision of what we want in the future, because we will be the heritage for that future that follows us. Let our future show that we are ready to focus on being a county well-suited and well-positioned for success. We want our future to reveal that our employees and this county are able to stand toe-to-toe with the challenges and make decisions to empower our community. We are the driving force and challenged by others because we have many positive attributes. We want to work with you to enable your dreams to come true. This county has come a long way since its very humble beginning. With time, it has developed and expanded its services to the community. And throughout, we have many experienced some challenges. For example, last year, we had a ransomware attack that hit our information systems, affecting access. Some people would say virtually everything, to the way that we do business with the county and the store. We have since rebuilt and restored operations that require that we make a significant investment in additional resources and raising awareness of our computer activity. We had to work at developing our best firewall and letting our employees know and teach them that they are the firewall that stops things from coming in. As we move forward into the year, we all recognize that budgets can be challenging. Some of you here, or it's rumored that you're in farming and business, and you guys know about challenging budgets, so I think you understand. And we address our challenging budget, we create a work, as we address our challenging budget, we created a work group to help identify ways to maximize our effectiveness while minimizing impacts on the services that we provide, both to residents and visitors. These efforts will be working in tandem with efforts to attract business and new industry into Imperial County, while supporting the local business to expand and thrive. We must also put the county's advocacy efforts in the forefront to ensure that our county is awarded all possible opportunities, acquire additional funds, grants, and any resources that are coming to it. That program services are not adversely impaired by proposed state. That's not the stuff, is it? That are not proposed by, that are not challenged or taken away by state or federal legislation. That county residents are not harmed by federal and state governments in action to address some of the epidemics that face our environment, such as the New River and the Salton Sea. Okay, let's give this one a try. Thank you. For this reason, much better, huh? For this reason, on October 22nd of last year, our Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to declare a local state of emergency at the Salton Sea. By declaring this emergency, the board and the county staff turned to the state of California to spring into action to provide additional emergency funding and streamline the permitting process for the construction and management of dust suppression projects. Since we recognize that the state was falling behind and failing in its efforts in meeting and the acreage goal that is set forth in the 10-year Salton Sea Management Plan. To date, there's almost 24,000 acres of exposed playa in the south end of the Salton Sea, which is what has the most exposure. However, The majority of the current playa emissions come from the playa exposed on the west of the Salton Sea. Since our emergency declaration effort was timed by the state, we are proceeding to think creatively by pushing projects and pursuing projects and efforts that are within our local control. Therefore, the board approved to enter into a memorandum of understanding for a funding agreement with the state so that we can implement the Desert Shores project that is intended to cover exposed playa near the residential community on the west side of the Salton Sea. At this time, we are awaiting the state's response. We also believe that the emergency declaration brought some additional attention, and in his budget proposal released last month, Governor Newsom proposed a climate resilience bond that would include an additional $220 million in funding for the Salton Sea Management Program. We will continue to advocate for the residents of Imperial County and are committed to collaborating with the IAD and other stakeholders to hold the state accountable for its contractual obligation to restore the Salton Sea. In addition to our advocate efforts, there is so much that we can look back on and should be very proud of our achievements. For example, in December 2018, when the Farm Bill reclassified hemp and legalized the production of it, the Board of Supervisors, recognizing hemp as a viable new commodity for our area, quickly embraced the industry by entering into a memorandum of understanding with Imperial Valley College for hemp research programs, identifying its potential to bring growth and jobs to this community. We also hosted and coordinated, along with the IVEDC, the first Imperial County Hemp Summit and Expo at the Imperial Valley Fairgrounds. We brought together industry leaders, growers, regulators, manufacturers, and vendors from across the nation, including many county departments and representatives participating as panelists and exhibitors to discuss the wide range of business opportunities for industrial hemp in our community. In an effort to enhance services in Imperial County as well, the Sheriff's Office has increased efficiencies through investment in additional technologies to improve investigations with the use of drones and rapid DNA technology that can now process biological samples in less than 2 hours. ICSO has also expanded some of their enforcement programs through the acquisition of additional off-highway vehicle enforcement vehicles and added 2 K-9 officers. They have been able to make these investments due to their proactive and successful grant application through securing almost $4.8 million in federal, state, and local funds. At the county, we are dedicated to empower our community, and one of the avenues to do so is through education. We are doing this through our free libraries. In 2019, the library system was awarded a $245,000 grant from the California State Library System to lead a county-wide collaborative initiative that provides new services and resources for families with autism at the local libraries. This program is called the Libraries of Spectrum. Through the County Air Control Board, we supported education and healthy environments in our schools by completing several air quality projects at 3 schools and at the Desert Museum, where we installed a new air filtration system and paved parking lots to decrease fugitive dust emissions, promoting local children and protecting them from respiratory effects of dust particles. APCD also joined the fight against air pollution with the California Air Resource Board through the implementation of AB 417. Along with striving to improve our air quality for our residents, we are dedicated to improving and expanding our parks and our families too. Last year, Imperial County Department of Public Works made several improvements and upgrades to Sunbeam Lake Park in Sealy that include beach volleyball courts, soccer fields, and playgrounds. We plan to continue our efforts with future upgrades and added amenities that will include softball fields, bleachers, a sunbeam garden, and movies in the park. This project will provide much needed infrastructure for our community. I know that many of you are very curious about the road projects throughout the county, and John Gay, our Public Works Director, is here, and perhaps if you have specific questions, he can help me answer those. We are a small county, not in size, but in population and in finance. We recognize that in order to be successful and efficient, we must create and foster partnerships. And as the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, I look forward to working together to continue to improve the quality of life for our residents. Just like our forefathers adapted and evolved as changes came about, in the uncertainty of the desert, we too must continue to evolve and adapt. We will continue to bring life with new crops to our farmland as we see organics beginning to fill many of our fields. High quality custom grown salad mixes are being harvested throughout, and very promising and meaningful investments in hemp research throughout the county are beginning to come about. We will carry on with leading the charge in helping California meet its aggressive renewable energy goals while emerging as a top green and renewable energy solutions provider to our communities. Today in Imperial County, we talk about renewable energy such as geothermal and solar like it was a normal thing. For many areas, this is space-age stuff that they can't even think about. But as we begin to look at the next step, battery storage and renewable energy transitions that come in the horizon, we see the race for improving electric vehicles, and as the need for lithium and batteries continues to grow worldwide, Imperial County finds itself blessed with the presence of lithium in the geothermal reservoirs, which has the potential to be the county's next big boom. We are doing our best to promote this opportunity and work with the resource. Today we are building the future, and together we will continue to evolve, adapt, and build on the legacy of our forefathers. 100 years from now, there will be a board chairman providing a state of the county address. I would like to imagine that there will be talk about the legacy that we are creating today and the blessings that our county people enjoy. As I usher into my first chairmanship, I ask that you, as a county, as a community, not follow my lead, but walk with us shoulder to shoulder as we stand together as a united team. A team envisioned in the future and in creative, positive heritage for tomorrow. May God continue to smile upon and bless the people of Imperial County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plancarte. Mr. Cardenas, you're up.
All right. Well, special thanks to Mr. Plancarte. I appreciate everything that the county has done. And before I kind of get into this prepared statement, do want to highlight the fact that when it comes to the Imperial Irrigation District and the county, that we are welded together, and our relationship is just at an all-time high when it comes to collaboration. So I do want to thank the leadership at the county and everything that they're doing, but we are joined at the hip. So special thanks to the county and the work that they're doing. Also, just want to take the time to recognize a couple of our folks from IID. We got a great team over there. Very fortunate to be a part of that team. First, I know we mentioned our energy manager, Ms. Marilyn Gilbert, but we also have Mr. Mike Pacheco in the house. And if you need water, he's the one that can deliver it. So Mr. Mike Pacheco here this morning, thank you for everything. When it comes to the legal side and just really staying ahead of the curve and anticipating some of the things that are coming, Joanna Smith-Huff is just really doing an excellent job. So I also want to just recognize Miss Joanna Smith, who's here in the audience as well. And then we just keep him busy. He's extremely busy. And that's our general counsel, Mr. Frank Oswald. So thank you, Mr. Oswald, for being here as well. And as Kay said, I'm representing Norma Sierra Galindo, who's our president, who's right now probably giving an earful to Brenda Berman from the Reclamation from BOR. So she's up there at Farm Alliance, and so I'm here to represent her. So, but again, always a pleasure to be in front of our Colab family. You know we love you guys, right? So here we go. Good morning. Good morning all, and thank you for the invitation to be here today representing the Imperial Irrigation District and its Board of Directors. This year, like last, is off to a very fast start, and there are many issues of great importance and has a significant impact to the district, to you, and to its customers. However, there are particular issues that I know that you're going to be very interested in. And so what I thought is I would go ahead and start this opening statement with some of those issues and then maybe take a deeper dive into the questions. But a lot of important topics facing the district and our county. So we'll go ahead and start right off the bat with AB 854 and the 1934 Compromise Agreement. As you may recall, 854 was introduced last February by Assemblymember Chad Mays and would have added 6 new directors to the IID board out of the Riverside County. This was a direct attack on IID's governance and amounted to nothing more than a power and water grab. IID worked closely with the wide coalition of stakeholders at the local level and across the state, including Colab, to oppose this bill. While I'm proud to say and inform that AB 854 is officially dead, we just received communication that Assemblymember Mays has introduced a new study bill. The study bill is related to this matter. This bill should be in print today, but we have already seen it. In short, the new bill would direct the Energy Commission to work with Imperial County or Imperial Irrigation District and Riverside Counties, LAFCO, to look at options of the electrical services that are offered to the Coachella Valley at the end of the 99-year lease agreement with Coachella Valley Water District. The study would then be submitted to the legislators by June 30th, 2022. Rest assured that IID will not wait for Sacramento to debate this issue, and we're definitely going to stay ahead of the curve to ensure that our ratepayers are being represented. The board has already instructed staff to propose and to proceed in conducting a comprehensive legal and financial analysis in 2020 to help inform the board of the future decision-making as it relates to IID's continued electric service to the Coachella Valley. I do not want to get ahead of my board of directors since this is just breaking, but we will be putting a pretty comprehensive strategy, and you guys will be involved in that as well. In regards to substations, IID owns and operates 68 load-serving distribution substations and 18 transmission switching substations, which some of them have been funded by developers. IID also approximately has 25 generating interconnection facilities, which the majority have been funded by developers as well as a direct cost. The district treats each project on a case-by-case basis. However, 5 years ago, IID initiated basic development principles. These principles mandate that development pay the cost of mitigating the impacts affecting these projects. Because both new developments and ratepayer protection are important to the district, it continues to work with developers to find common solutions and ensure the energy capacity needs are met. In regards to the North Gila IV2 transmission line, at this time, IID is not a participant on that proposed transmission project. However, IID will consider the proposal and weigh the potential benefits of additional capacity and any impacts to our ratepayers and to the grid. If it benefits to exist, IID staff will have to make recommendations to the board and who and how that determination will take place. In regards to battery storage project, IID batteries project is up and meeting all expectations in allowing us to integrate the abundance of local renewable energy power, which can no, I was working on this word, but which will allow it to flow and recede throughout the day into the IID grid and help us optimize the energy resources, which helps us keep costs low. IID was the first utility in the nation to restore energy to one of its electrical power stations without needing to rely on external transmission of networks. This is obviously called Black Start, and it's considered to be significant and fortunate ability by any utility in the industry, in the energy industry. The new building energy efficiency standards approved by the California Energy Commission, Green Building Standards Code, and final approval by the full commission, which we refer to as Title 24. Title 24 rules requires single-family homes and multifamily buildings as high as 3 stories be solar ready or equipped with PV systems. As with any new regulation, size and scope, IID closely monitors the grid to collect the data and evaluate the impacts to the system performance. As more solar systems come online, enhancements to the IID system could be required. Anticipating an increase in interconnections requests, IID has initiated activities to allow for online application process that is specific to customer service proposals and interconnection process, which should help expedite the additional impacts to our system. In regards to 10-year project labor agreements or 10-year PLAs, the IID recently voted to take the first step in negotiating a 10-year project labor agreement with IID projects. As of today, there have been no further board action since the direction given to staff. Any discussion any discussion about the potential future financial impacts or anything related to this direction is premature. The Salton Sea, we continue to make progress along the Salton Sea. Some of the highlights in regards to our projects and some of the things that we're doing down there. IID has completed over 2,000 acres of quality air projects, including the performance monitoring and the characterization to support Salton Sea air quality programs. It's also working with the state to ensure that IID's efforts to facilitate the restoration and its responsibilities. To be very clear, the Salton Sea restoration is the sole responsibility of the state. And this board, along with staff, will make sure that the state is held accountable. In regards to legal fees, when it comes to the IID, a body lawsuit, we're already at $2.4 million. And if there's any questions related to that, we'll also take a little bit of a deeper dive during Q&A. In regards to the IID dive team, since the suspension of the IID dive team, incidents of vehicles or people in canals have been attended to by first responders, local authorities, and a private diving company retained by the IID. The district continues to examine a possible agreement with Imperial County Sheriff's Office to perform these duties on an as-needed basis. In regards to the percentage of water and uses by agriculture, there have been some in the community who have recently addressed the IID board during its meetings and have asked IID to clarify the percentage of water in use by agriculture. Using the most recent water sales reports from 2018 and 2019, there are a number of information, or there's some information in regards to these numbers. 97.7% of water sales were to these classes of agriculture: general ag, mesa lands, and pump water. In regards to the 2.2% of the water sales in 2018 and 2019, the water sales included municipal and industrial uses. 1.32% were water sales for municipalities, and 1.89% of the water sales were for industrial use. So in closing, once again, I want to thank Colab and for the invitation here, and I hope that you have a better understanding of the district's position on some of these key issues, and look forward for continued discussion and collaboration. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alex. You took all the fun out of this. So we'll start with Mr. Plancarte. We have a question for you. The loan to Pacific Land from community benefits continues to be a concern by all the public. The media has focused only on the community benefit loan of $2 million. Prior to that loan, the county provided infrastructure loan in phases that totaled $6.1 million, some of which was reimbursed by grants. Additionally, unpaid property taxes and contractor improvements are at least another $900,000 owed to the county. The bottom line is the county needs over $4.4 million to be made whole from the dealings with Pacific Land. What is the likelihood of any of that being repaid? Moreover, why is the county in the loan business?
Mr. Cardenas? No? Okay. All right. So let me start, and Adam, I'm going to call you in a minute, but let me start by kind of setting this this way. The Community Benefit Loan Program comes from money where solar panel construction companies contribute to a program which is supposed to do economic development, education, and a couple other things. From that is where some of these loans come. Like any organization that has loans, most of them perform. Some of them don't perform as you intended, and that's just very natural, right? Let me remind you some of the ones that have performed. The bowling alley in El Centro, right? That was something where we see it working quite well. Doc's Organics in the North End. The beef plant is one of the recipients. I can go on and on and on with programs that are functioning very well. The Pacific Land is one that is taking a little bit more work. Now, recently, and I believe that they are addressing some of the final issues in their court yesterday or today? Yesterday? Today? Today. So in the news, we have seen how President Trump will tweet something and then his attorneys are doing something else. So I am not going to comment on it so that it doesn't affect what's going on in court today. But for that, I do have our county counsel here to kind of tell you a little bit about it. But I would also like to tell, I'll let him tell you about what we are doing in the future to limit some of this liability even more than we do so. So Adam?
Hi, thank you. So as Mr. Plancarte mentioned, this is still going through the court process, so I can't get into specifics really. What I can tell you is going through this process, we do have options where it looks like we will be able to recover the community benefit loan and the property taxes. I know there's other things out there that are still owed to the county, and we're looking at those and still working on them. Again, I can't really get into specifics until everything is settled and done. But what I can talk about is moving forward with readdressing how the county issues loans. The county is currently in the process of reviewing how we issue those loans and coming up with a program working with outside agencies to make sure that what we're doing, if we're making loans, that they're secured, that the people have the ability to repay those loans, and that we have the ability to recover should the loan go in default. So that should be coming before the board quite soon. Once it's on the agenda, we will let everyone know, and then we look forward to your questions and comments on that at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. All right, Alex. Since you did such a good job, I get to freelance here.
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you for telling us about the new whatever it's going to be, AB 854. You heard it first here. But what is the long-term plan if this continues to move forward with the Energy Department in Coachella, which is, I believe, 58% of your net revenue?
So first of all, we've set precedents and we developed a blueprint on how to tackle clumsy legislation, clumsy and reckless legislation. And that was actually off of the leadership of our past president, Eric Ortega. Eric Ortega did a great job in just getting on the front end of this, and then being able to put a team together with stakeholders and really shed light on how complicated this issue is. But we continue to make progress. We're entertaining a lot of different options. We've actually hired a couple of firms that are looking at what the retail value of that asset is. And so they know that it's an extremely complicated issue. But I'm here to tell you, and I'll have maybe Henry come up, our general manager, come up here in a little bit and get into the technical side of this, that we are clearly on the offensive when it comes to protecting our sovereignty. And we've already established a blueprint on how to kill reckless and clumsy legislation. With that being said, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to have dialogue with 60% of our customers. It's a tremendous amount of economic development on that end, quite a bit of load. They have a huge appetite for economic development. You know, if it does pencil out in terms of power and helping us out, then that's something in the market that we need to pursue. If they don't want us in that territory, we're out. At the end of the day, we're giving them 8%. 8% of our net proceeds go to Coachella Valley Water District. Now, what they're doing with that 8%, I don't know. But they're not sharing it with the other cities. And that's going to come to light. And that averages out to about $2 million a year. And so if they want to go ahead and provide a full accounting to the Coachella Valley on what they're doing with that money, then that's something that needs to be explored throughout this process. But we got a great team in terms of IID staff and personnel in Coachella. They do an amazing job up there in providing low energy rates. So the hard inquiry is really, that burden really falls on Coachella Valley as far as our relationship with them. But we're not going to sit around and wait for 2034 to make a deal. So we're going to fight that. Antonio Ortega here has done a great job in putting the team together. But I'm going to go ahead and ask our energy manager to come up and maybe provide some of the more specific details on what we're doing and making sure that some of those developers have access to our executive management so that we can be definitely economic friendly to some of those opportunities. So Mr. Martinez.
Well, former general energy market. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think Alex kind of summarized some of the activities going up in Coachella. We have stepped up our discussions with the cities up there. There's been a gap over time that the elected officials have not really been in contact with our senior leadership. We also hired a new manager in La Quinta, who now is basically taking the reins and being more proactive to reach out not only to the building community but also to the elected officials. And personally, as well as the board, has been up there a number of times to reach out. And part of the challenge here is, frankly, is trying to get all these cities to come together, along with the county, to figure out what they really want. And as we learned over the last several months, every city and the county has a different idea of what they want to do. There was an attempt to get them all together on a consensus basis. That failed miserably. It was an idea that was also explored by Chad Mays. And he also threw the towel in and decided this is not a viable formula. We have floated two high-level proposals or ideas at this point with the cities up there. We're in a process of formalizing something more specific that we're going to be discussing with the board. And it's really kind of a compromise approach to retain the load up there and provide some more potentially local governance in their cities up there in the county. That's about all I can explain it to you at this point, but as we discussed earlier, and again, Director Ortega mentioned, Director Cardenas mentioned, payback. there's a lot of moving parts to this issue, and as the most recent bill that we found out about it, frankly, last week, and it came to fruition yesterday, is going to put us in adjusting our strategy going forward. Again, keeping in mind that we do want to make sure that we turn every rock up there before we give up the ship, because there is a lot of opportunity for this district to be successful and continue to provide energy in a large growing area up there as well. And it will help us overall for the system here in Imperial County as well. So I want to make sure that we don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's going to require a lot of work, but we're looking at all options at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Alex, you don't get to sit down. Okay. There has been a number of times at IID board meetings recently where the figure 18% of the water allocation has been addressed. Alex, you got to get out of the camera. I know you like it. To clarify for this group, I think where the numbers and the difference in the two things is we have a 3.1 million acre foot allocation. 500,000 acre feet of that is transferred. That represents 18% of the total. So when you talk about 97.7% going to ag users, you're only referring to the perfected water rights of 2.6. Is that correct, Mr. Cardenas?
I'm gonna have to punt. So I'm gonna go ahead. I did spend some time with Ms. Tina, and again, I did ask her, and so did the board. Yeah, I know, but we did want to fact check and provide some numbers for you in terms of the water. Where's this water going? I can just tell you some general elected, type of comments. But guys, at the end of the day, we are here to support this ag industry. It's a beautiful $2 billion ag industry, $4 billion crop plus ag industry, and that water is going to our most precious industry, which is ag. You guys are the signature industry in our community, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that water keeps flowing. And so with that being said, I'm going to ask Mr. Martinez to come up one more time and maybe help us address, or Mr. Mike. All right. So he's going to come on up and bail me out here.
It's not bailing out, but that's correct, Kay. The 97.7 is the water that's coming. It's water sales that come into the valley, and those are going into the ag. Okay, in the valley. Yeah. So, is that your question? Okay. That was easy.
And while we certainly appreciate all of our ag sales and the water sales here, I'd like to point out that the number one customer for IID collectively is the Energy Department in Coachella, Riverside County, and the second largest customer is San Diego County Water Authority. Let that sink in for a minute. But while we're talking numbers, Mr. Plancarte, since the 2019-20 budget was approved on October 1st, the public hasn't seen any discrepancies or where you are. Could you please, and the question's written out there, could you address that, Mr. Plancarte? What's going on?
Okay, so let me start. I'm going to add something that's water, that's both for you and us. March 18th, the Water Board will be having a meeting in Imperial County in El Centro. They will have an afternoon meeting after lunch, and then an evening meeting where the community can give input. We will make more information available through Kay, but it's definitely one to watch for you. So let me talk a little bit about the budget. We've been trying to provide information on a monthly basis as to where we are at, but all of you understand and know billing, and somewhere along the line, so let me back up a little bit. The county budget is roughly, I'm gonna round off, a $500 million budget a year, of which about $280 million or so are contracted services that we provide to state agencies, federal agencies. Those are monies that come in specifically to do a service. There's about 220 million that are considered general fund. Those come through taxes, that type of revenue. Like any billing or any money coming in, you provide a service now, and the money does not come in sometimes for 30, 60 days. All of us here do billing. If you take a snapshot of how your finances are the day after you paid all the bills for the services you provided, but you have not received the income from the person you provided the services and you have not booked it yet, you show like you're running negative numbers, deficit numbers. So the beginning of last year, we began to, on a monthly basis, show where our budget is. And we began to realize quickly that as we show our budget, we might show today that we were $6 million in the red, if you will, but sitting in the auditors was a check to be processed for the same amount. And the next day, the report would have showed that we are even. And so that is creating a lot of questions and discrepancy. But I hope that all of you will understand that when you provide a service and you expend the funds and you pay those contractors and buy those materials and pay rent for those buildings, the money, when it comes in, depends when it comes in from one day to another, can show you from a loss, breaking even, or being ahead. I'm going to allow some time for our county CEO, Tony Rojudas, to elaborate on some more of the things that we are. But don't be so quick to think that we are operating at a deficit, because that might be the case at 8 o'clock in the morning, may not be the case after 5 o'clock when the books get closed at the end of that day. Tony?
Thank you, Chairman. What he has said, that is correct. And one of the biggest things that we've been looking at lately when we did our last report, and we're actually doing a report on this coming Tuesday as well with the most updated numbers. We're constantly looking at the budget. We've also dedicated a team just to sit on a regular basis with board members included to go over how we can make appropriate changes. When I spoke in front of this group last year, we said we're going to make changes, and we began those changes. We have delved in a great deal of our special budgets that have been sitting there growing in numbers because they were specialized funds and they hadn't been tapped into. We're looking at how we've tapped into those, and we began that last year when we started utilizing some of those special funds that had been sitting there growing that can't be used for regular general fund use, but however they can be used to offset cost associated with general fund activities, such as we had our sheriff's office receiving green tag money or OVES money for the desert activities that were occurring throughout the desert. However, we were never drawing on those funds to reimburse ourselves for overtime use or response use for the desert. So we implemented that, saved, and that also includes for fire and EMS. So we were able to reimburse ourselves in our budget last year for over $1 million just for those type of activities, which makes a positive $1 million back towards the general fund. So we've done that with several of our activities. Something else we've looked at, as I mentioned last year, we were looking at our program management. A lot of our programs that we provide, either through social services, behavioral health, have especially social services, there's a general fund contribution. And we've been determining what the exact number is that our general fund contributions should be. So we've actually changed the way that they're going to be reporting, the way that they're going to be inputting their numbers, so we can minimize our general fund contribution. Last year, our general fund contribution to Department of Social Services was $17.5 million. My question to them is, how can we operate that closer to $10 million to be able to put $7.5 million back into our general fund? It's all about program management and how we see it. So we've actually changed the way that they're going to be tracking their billing and putting in for reimbursement, so we have truer numbers. So we're not creating our budget at the $220 million that Plancarte mentioned, but how do we lower our budget to, say, $210 million to be able to balance easier at the end of the year? Those are the changes that we're making. We're continuing to make those changes, and we won't stop. It's been very clear that we obviously want to have a huge positive reserve for the future for our employees, but also the community we serve. So we do not have an impact to the services we provide, but create the better quality of life for Imperial County.
I want to talk a little more about the Title 14. When will the developers see what IID's plan is? When we did the general energy plan last year, what I saw in it was that there would be, each developer would have, rather than going on a house, there would be a solar field, if you will, in their neighborhood. Is that what you're planning on doing, or is it still a work in progress?
I'm gonna have our general manager on standby here, but I just want to let you know that Title 24 has been something that I've been looking at since October, November, and as far as risk reward and then the impact it would have on our developers. So definitely wanted to really take a deep dive into Title 24. I know for sure that it's a big piece of legislation, a lot of moving parts, still kind of a situation where they're moving the goalpost on us when it comes to Title 24. But between our GM and our energy manager and our CFO, this is something that's been on the forefront, and we're shoring that up right now, and to ensure a couple different things. Number one, that we set an overall strategy on how we're going to address Title 24, whether it's through community or individual buildings. The second part is making sure that we're providing you the technical guidance on how to deal with Title 24. And so I am asking that our developers be at the table when it comes to those types of discussions, and maybe we can discuss those types of forums. But this is something that we definitely need to provide some leadership on as your public utility. But maybe I'll ask our general manager to come up and just share a little bit on his vision and his understanding of Title 24.
Thank you, Alex. So indeed, Title 24 has been in the forefront now for more than a year and a half. And when it was enacted this January, basically, now officially the code is there, and we know the building community has to deal with this aspect. So we're trying to set up a meeting with the DBBA in Palm Springs with Gretchen to sit down with the building association and walk through the options that we have available. One of the options that's just recently been approved by the commission, the California Energy Commission, is the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, where basically instead of adding rooftop at every new home, they basically have built or proposing to build utility-owned small solar panels and solar farms, in essence, and then tie them in directly to these facilities. That ran into a lot of controversy with the commission, particularly from the solar installers, because in essence what it created is jobs that would have been done by the solar workers, in essence, would be done by the utility. But then, they talked about the economies of scale and affordability of housing. So weighing all those factors, the commission did approve that model. We're definitely going to have to take a look at it to see how it applies to us here in Imperial County as well as in Coachella. Because at the bottom, I think the state is also fighting the issue of housing affordability, which is another big problem throughout the state. So the most, what I would say, simple thing to do is for the builders to add on solar panels to their homes, the new homes. We would have to in turn make sure that the integration process to our system has to be done promptly, quickly, and at low cost, and then make sure that it doesn't overload our system, because we have to do improvements on the distribution lines. The other model that was adopted, as I mentioned, was Sacramento Municipal, basically provides economies of scale. It reduces the price of homes, or at least levelizes the price of homes, and it has other attributes, in essence, for the utility that are also benefiting. But I think those two models basically are in play. We like to sit down with the building association and come to an agreement as to what is the best model to use. So I think Maryland has set up a meeting here next month. So it's already been established, so we'll begin discussions with the building industry here next month.
Are there any audience questions that we need to address? I got one more bomb. And oh no. Yeah. Recently, y'all have spent some time in Sacramento with the state's Office of Emergency Services. since the Easter earthquake, we haven't received any reimbursements for what we view as an emergency. Why is that, and what are y'all doing? A softball.
So the California Office of Emergency Management is, there's opportunities when there is adverse weather events. We have an area where there's a significant microburst and it's knocking out a major transmission line. And so when there's situations like that, we really have to address that. Very expensive. So a lot of moving parts in declaring an emergency, and because we're in 2 counties, there has to be a lot of collaboration between Imperial County and Riverside County. So we are shoring up those relationships, making sure that all those boxes are being checked when you make the official ask to the California Office of Emergency Management, and making ourselves eligible for reimbursement. The great thing, and this is actually breaking too, is the California Office of Emergency Management is coming down. They're coming down next week, and we're going to go ahead and show them some of our assets and what we can do to chase money to harden those assets to prevent those emergency disasters. They have a grant program that provides 75% funding to shore those types of projects up, where the only impact to our general fund would be about 25%. And we went up to Sacramento a couple weeks ago, and they were very pleased. They did not know that we have 3.1 million acre feet of water coming through our system, and they want to be involved, and they want to learn more about that precious commodity and what we're doing to protect that commodity. So we've got some signature sites that we're going to take them to, and we're going to start chasing some money. And we're going to start chasing some money and see what we can do to shore those projects up. It's a very exciting and promising relationship. It does 2 things. Number 1, it improves our eligibility for these types of grants. And then number 2, it shores up the process on how to ensure that we're getting refunded on some of these emergencies. So there's plenty of money out there right now. We are working on shoring up that process, and again, making sure that all those boxes are checked, so we are getting reimbursed and we're having minimal impact to our ratepayers and to our general fund. So next week they'll be out here. We'll take them to a couple of different sites, but as contractors, guys, there's a bunch of work coming. So a bunch of work, a bunch of capital projects. So we're very excited about that, tapping into that bucket of money.
And I'm going to bypass protocol and ask Mr. Rahodas to give us an update on, or we'll ask Mr. Plancardi, because I take directions sort of well, Mr. Plancardi to give us an update on Coupa.
So while he makes his way up here, as you know, we've been trying to, for some time, to get the Coupa process back under county control. And originally we submitted an application through County Fire, came back with some comments. We are in the process of resubmitting that. And I'd like to have Jeff Lamore come up and speak about how we are going forward with that process, where it is at now, and what it's next. Thank you.
Good morning. Essentially, where we're at with it, we're working with Cal EPA. We plan on what they've offered us is a participating agency agreement. So we are pursuing that. We basically need to demonstrate to Cal EPA that we can administer the program. The program has been moved from fire to environmental health. So environmental health is now pursuing Cal EPA to ensure that this participating agency agreement is put in place. One of the key things that the Secretary has directed Department of Toxic Substances Control to do is to enter into an agreement with the county, specifically to handle one of the elements, which is the business plan element. One of the other things that DTSC is pursuing is actually providing the ASPA, which is the Above Ground Petroleum Storage Act, which is the above ground tank program. They want to move that program over to the Coupa. So our comment, or actually instead of doing the business plan, they prefer that we do the above ground tank program. Our comment to that is we'll take them both. So we actually are wanting to aggressively pursue the program to be able to demonstrate to the state that we can take this program back. I'm very confident that we will bring the Coupa program back to local management. So that's kind of the role, the direction we're going with this. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, IID, all of you. Thank you, county, all of you. And this ends the 2020 Colab Breakfast. Thank y'all for coming.